Well, it's on Ridealong, so it's happening here.
Came over here. What does it mean?
You know, I grew up in what I guess we call a typical family.
We break all the stories, and that's just a fact. And that's why everyone has a story to tell.
Ridealong live, I mean, yeah, it's the real deal.
Yeah, the real deal. I should say so myself. Welcome to Ridealong Live for today, guys. It is Thursday on the ride. Big up yourself. Everyone as you're coming, go ahead and share the program and say, I share. Share the program and say, I share. Yeah. Get everything in order. Big up my peeps. Yeah, like I said that, big up my peeps. Yo. Dion Fraser, Lacey J, I see you. Good night to you. Sharina Williams, good night, riders. Good night, guys. Listen, tonight, we're gonna have a very interesting conversation. I figured that we needed to have this conversation after I made a post yesterday from a dear rider, someone who wrote into us as a dear rider. So I felt it was necessary to continue this conversation because it seems like this is a debate that it's unresolved and people don't speak about it much anymore. A lot of people don't even think or know the history of the subject matter that we're going to speak on today. We are going to be speaking about corporal punishment in schools. Yeah. Like when I was growing up, I remember getting a lot of licks. I used to get licks before I did something. Like I used to get licks in advance. That's how I used to get beat. They used to beat me before I did something because they know I was going to do something. So I know about getting licks in school. Let me give you guys a quick history of flogging in school, right? And the history of corporal punishment. Now, in America, in the U.S. right now, the first state in the U.S. to ban corporal punishment in school was New Jersey in 1867. But it was more than 100 years before any other state did, right? In 1972, Massachusetts banned the public school flogging. Many states followed, but today corporal punishment is still legal in public schools in 19 states in the U.S. But it's also legal right now. It's legal in all states, all private schools in the U.S. except Jersey and Idaho, right? Other places, it is illegal. So, they say, know all my business. So today we're going to talk about it, guys. We're going to talk about it and dive deeper into the subject and get your point of view on the matter. Now, my two guests on the program tonight, let me bring them up right there. We have Kibbs and my good friend Joel Greenidge. We are going to splice down this topic, talk about this topic. Let me also say that I try really, really, really hard to get someone on the panel who is in support of corporal punishment in school. Although they express their support for it, no one actually wanted to come on the record to speak about it. So I said, you know what? Never mind that. I'm still going to open up the phone lines to get your point of view on it. So anyone that wants to call in, because this is a debate, this is a conversation, I'm going to open up the phone lines and keep the phone lines open so you guys could call in and voice your opinion on it. So let's welcome our guest. She's in England right now, and she's a part of the Ridealong team. You guys know her pretty well. Kim, say good night to everyone.
All right, good night, everyone. Welcome in.
Thank you. And listen, I have to tell you, don't forget to share the thing, eh?
Don't forget to share, like and share, people.
Like and share, absolutely. And of course, he also needs no introduction. He is our direct connect down there in Grenada. We're doing a lot of work on a youth activist, Mr. Joel Greenidge. Joel, how are you doing, my brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy New Year and Happy New Year to your viewing audience, man. It's always a pleasure to be on Ride Along. I mean, it's my first time on Ride Along for 2022, so I'm excited to be part of the conversation.
Yes, 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 yes. All right, so let's go right into it, guys. Let's go right into it because as I was saying earlier, um, I got beat in high school. I got beat in primary school. I got beat in pre-primary school. In fact, I was a mess to tell you the truth. I got licks all the way through. What is your take? Let's start with Kibbs. You first. What is your take on corporal punishment in schools?
Junior, I don't believe in any form of punishment, so I don't believe in corporal punishment at school. I don't believe in physical punishment at home, but definitely a no for corporal punishment at school. I think that's really old age and back in time, and I think society has evolved and we're more sophisticated now, and there are a plethora of ways we can deal with things, and that's my take.
Okay, that's your premise on it.
Yeah.
Well, what's your take on it? Corporal punishment in school.
Well, I mean, the research will show that corporal punishment has long-term negative effects on children, and it has a damaging effect on children's neurological development and also compromise their cognitive development. I mean, what we have seen is that many students who actually would have received corporal punishment at school, many of them turn out to be very aggressive. Many of them have actually been impacted in terms of their academical ability. Many of them actually dropped out of school. Many of them turned to drugs and alcohol. So the fact is, it also affects the self-esteem, and I can relate to that. I know of many of my fellow students in school, those who actually would have received corporal punishment, and you saw how it would have impacted their self-worth, their confidence, and I mean, it's just unfortunate that some of them even became very aggressive and went on to get involved in violence, and some of them, even I know one of them even went on to commit murder. So I mean, the research is there, and I think the fact that corporal punishment was removed from many schools, not just in Grenada but across the world, it is quite evident based on the research that it definitely does not have a positive effect on children.
But here, let me play devil's advocate here for a bit, right? You said that a lot of people who got licks, they end up depressed or whatever, all these different neurological and physical problems in the later development stage in life. People would say, but look, most of us, I got licks, and I turned out, I did turn out fine. I turned out fine. So what's
Junior,
the difference?
Junior, one of the things I would say, right? This generation is growing up softer than previous generation. What
True.
people of your generation would have actually been able to deal with and overcome, you realize this generation, the minute time a young person quitted something once, they give up, they run into a corner, they cry. It's really a very soft generation. And the fact is, young people will associate corporal punishment to the fact that you don't like them, the fact that they're not good enough, and it really affects them beyond just the corporal punishment. And this is the reality about it.
Yeah.
So we cannot overlook the fact that we are dealing with a different generation, growing up in a different era, very connected by technology. And you have to understand that even people of previous generations who are now parents, the way they parent their children is different. I mean, my daughter will do something, and I'll tell her go to the naughty corner. I'll take away her something of value that she loves. But I also create a system where I reward her when she does well. You understand? So I think we have evolved, and our parenting style has been different, and it is actually bearing great fruits. Even parents themselves today have a better relationship with their children. They have a greater bond than back in the days when, I mean, in your period, most of those parents didn't know how to show affection. They did not know how to express themselves emotionally to their children. You understand? So because of how they grew up and how they were treated. So I mean, you know, to me, things has evolved, and I think we have to evolve with the times. And those are old days, and I don't think it's of any great value to really harnessing and developing a child to really become a positive contributing citizen to society.
What says you, Kibbs, on that?
Yes, I totally agree with what Joel said. I mean, children and old people are the most sort of vulnerable people we have in society. And if growing up a child and molding a child, their first form of being disciplined is to be beaten, then you're sort of introducing them into a world where they think that, okay, the first place to solve a problem is to become aggressive. Um, Following on from what Joel said, research has shown that corporal punishment, beating children, has no sort of benefits on children whatsoever, none. No research, and there's a plethora of research out there that says there's no benefit from beating a child at all. Um, Again, from what Joel said, we have moved into a era where we're more evolved. Society has become more sophisticated. How people dealt with things in the past, and now you could say people in the past, maybe our parents were more resilient. We didn't have that emotional connection, and the reason why probably we didn't have that is because we didn't have the knowledge of that. You know, people wasn't researching emotional intelligence, resilience for children. Children are exposed online, so whereas before probably we'd go out, play, you know, get rid of, have different coping strategies, go down by the river, pitch some marble, whatever, talk to a friend. You rarely find children doing that now. Everyone's online. You get bullied online. You get everything's talked about online. So you have a different form of coping strategies. Your resilience is different. And if your primary socialization, which is home and school, you know, before you do something wrong, the first thing that happens is someone is going to beat you. That makes you feel like you're not good enough. Number one, makes you feel like you're not good enough. It makes you feel like being aggressive when something goes wrong is the way to be. So boys may grow up feeling like when I get into a relationship with my girlfriend, if she doesn't agree with me or she does something wrong, what I do is become aggressive. A woman might feel like, okay, I've grown up in a relationship when I've done something or something goes wrong, my parents were aggressive. So if my partner is aggressive, then that's acceptable, you know. So we go through that cycle of trauma, which we need to cut. And I mean, the European Convention of the Rights of the Child have said we shouldn't be beating children. That's sort of banned in 194 countries. So, you know, it's the right of a child not to be beaten. So no form of physical harm should be brought to a child, whether heavy or light. So some parents say, oh, I spanked my child, or I slapped them under their foot, I slapped them in a, you know, that's just not accepted, and it's against a child's rights. And a lot of parents and adults fail to accept that children have rights.
Right.
You know, they feel like I'm the parent or I'm the authority figure, especially in school. I'm the authority figure, and whatever I say goes. You know, so you fail to realize that children have rights. Additionally, Junior, in school, if a child answer back to a teacher per se, yeah, and the teacher's first thing is to, oh, you listen to what I say. You shouldn't answer back. You're rude, and spank the child. Then you sort of decreasing the child's ability to become a free thinker, to ask questions, because we're going into a society where a lot of us, we don't ask questions. Whatever an authority figure say to us is what we believe, and we go by that. And we shouldn't do that. We should let children be critical and be able to speak about things without being punished by an authority figure. You know, so I am very
people
much.
Would say, people would say you take away, you spare the rod and you spoil the child.
Funny.
or you see, you take away the corporal punishment, you take away the punishment, and I'm not saying that because I'm not in support of it, but that's what that they should be presented on the table. You see kids coming to school with guns, and it's just a whole set of other problems. Does this in any way correct the behavior of the child? Or
No.
when the child feel a lash going across the back, they know, listen, if you do that again, you go feel that lash again.
That just instills fear, Julia. That's what we do to our children. We just instill fear in them. Whereas we could be talking to children and saying to them, This is why this behavior is not acceptable. So let's talk about it and let the children give their point of view. Instead of instilling fear and saying, "Shut up, don't ask me this," or "You're crying because you're playing, man," or "You're not crying." All you do is instilling fear in a child.
Yeah. Joel?
And Junior, we tend to actually, it's like put the, what they say, the cart before the horse.
Right.
We always think the problem, like children don't fall out of the sky, Junior. Children come from communities, they come from home, right? Children are what they see, what they're exposed to. So the same grown adults who want to beat a child because of how a child behaves, where did this behavior come from? Was this behavior learned?
Yeah.
You cannot be what you cannot see. You understand? So children is a reflection of the community, they're a reflection of the society. And the minute time a child follows what they would have seen, our first reaction is to beat that child and to punish that child. How does that solve the problem? The bigger problem is the society.
Yeah.
And if we are able to create better communities, stronger communities, greater exposure for our kids learn discipline, they learn responsibility, right? They learn how to be involved in community. So they learn teamwork and team spirit, and they can ask questions. Children must be given a platform. Look at a young girl who is leading the charge for climate change around the world, spoke to United Nations General Assembly, so many international organizations, championing the cause for her generation. And she was what at the time, 12 or 10? Young people must be free to ask questions. And that's the thing about it in school. I could remember that. I was very shy when I was in school. Because as a little boy, because I was beaten by my stepfather, every time I opened my mouth and speak, I was beaten. It affected my confidence. So I came into school in the initial part of my life, and I was very introverted. I was very shy. I always equated speaking out or expressing myself to punishment. You understand? So when we hear they say, "Oh, this child is rude," no, this child is basically have a different view. And this child is a free thinker, because remember, children today are different. You have an 8-year-old creating an app, sold it to Google for $4 million. You have children at the age of 4, they are coming up with innovations. So we are dealing with a different type of young people.
Yeah.
So
So
the
the
minute
whole educational process, what you're saying, that was adapted, it was a wrong approach. Because I remember that they used to say, "Boy, how you don't, this child don't become last in test, you don't." And you go through the process, you wouldn't pass, like say you don't pass common entrance. That's it for you. Your whole that's you don't have another opportunity to extend your education. You finish. But that doesn't mean that you don't have abilities.
Yeah.
And for this whole time growing up in standard one, form two, everyone calling you dunce and you feel like you're not worthy, it basically psychologically affecting your brain.
of
But
course,
There's
really, if you
there's
look
a
deeply into
theory for
that
that.
child, he have abilities that has not been explored. So the teachers and them wasn't really looking at it right. They was kind of looking at it wrong, and they think by beating that child, they will get him to get bright.
Junior, just to make one point also, and that was an observation I made in school. And if these things are not corrected, we will continue to produce students who go out into society and be very destructive. Sometimes children are coming from very broken homes, dysfunctional family. A child would have left home where he saw his father beating his mother, and that child is trouble. And this is a child after seeing and experiencing all of those things. That child has to leave and go to school. And that child might be acting in certain ways, acting up in school, asking for help. His acting up in the class or acting up in school or reacting to a teacher is that child silently being hurt, going through some traumatic experiences, coming from a broken home, and that child is asking for help. And what do you do on top of that? You punish that child. That child is already screaming for help. And then you punish that child on top of that. So what do you create? You create a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, Joel, because the child is only experiencing probably mother beating father, father beating mother at home, probably aggressive behavior at home, probably shut up every time the child wants to speak. The child doesn't know how to ask for help. The child wants help, probably wants to say what's going on at home or just somebody to be there and support it. But because we always stifle it the voice of a child, the child doesn't know how to ask for help. He only knows how to be aggressive because that's what he's exposed to. And Julia, you said something earlier on about teachers saying to a child, "Oh, you dunce." A teacher should never say that to a child. There's no dunce child. There's a theory out there called labeling theory, which is where you put a label on a child and you keep telling that child that over and over and over. And at a certain point or a period, a child tends to believe that. So at some point, the child is going to believe, well, yeah, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to do anything in school. I'm just going to be aggressive and give trouble, and that's the only way I'm going to get attention. And then the teachers is going to get fed up because they're going to be like, oh, well, I'm beating the child and nothing's happening because it's dunce. No, it's your approach. There's no dunce children. And I'd hate to think that people are still using those labels and those stereotypes, in this day and age for children, because that really psychologically damage a child into adulthood.
Yeah.
It's really scary. I don't know what goes on in the educational system, but if that's happening, that is really, really scary to think about. You're potentially shaping somebody into the future, and you start off by saying, "Oh, you're done. You're not going to be anything. You're not going to amount anything. All you could do is give trouble." What are you telling that child from there on out in school? That's the only thing you're going to do in life. So that's what they're going to, proceed to.
Guys, we're talking about corporal punishment in schools. And this discussion came about because of a dear rider, a parent who wrote to us indicating that her child was being beaten by a particular individual. After we posted that, we got so many different posts. You guys criticized. There was people who criticized us for posting it. There was people who said that we should have never posted this. There were people who was in support and a lot of people who was against. So I believe that this discussion need to be had. This discussion need to continue. And the question that really need to be asked, if you beat a child into submission or into trying to get them to learn something, do they actually learn?
No.
Do they actually learn the timetables? Let me tell you a quick story, and then we're going to get your reaction on it. I remember when I was in Form 2 in Grenada, there was this particular teacher, Mr. Brathwaite. That was his name, Mr. Brathwaite from Barbados. I remember the man. Thick man, the man, strapping. And oftentimes he would take us outside by the church in Anglican school, and he would say, recite. He would say, okay, for next week, you have to know from the 2 to the 12 timetables. And there's a lot of numbers to remember. If you guys know the 2 timetable, the 2, 3, 4, 5, all the tables, you have to know it. And you have to know it multiplication ways and division ways. We'll go outside, and Mr. Brathwaite would say, you look, Junior George, come up and recite the 8 timetables. They'll say, 8, 1, 8, 8 into 8, 1. And you can't make a mistake. The minute time you make a mistake, is switch. And Mr. Brathwaite used to beat with relentless. Mr. Brathwaite used to beat you until you're scratching, you fall on the ground, and he's still beating you. No, that is that when you think about it now, that was abuse. Because up to now, I still don't know the 8 timetables.
Exactly.
In fact, when I think about the 8 timetables, I feel traumatized.
Yeah.
I avoid learning the 8 timetables.
Sure.
Yeah, I get it so bad because of the 8 timetables.
Yeah, Junior, do you know something? What I've realized in my time in education in Grenada versus my time in education in England, yeah? From most of my primary school and some of my secondary school years, when teachers would sort of threaten you and beat you and say, oh, you need to learn this or I'm going to beat you. I wasn't sort of being analytic. And again, this is what we need our children to be in this day and age, to analyze things, to sort of research things and understand what's right or wrong for them and make stands. Yeah? I was sort of taught this on memory. So everything that I've taught is, you better learn this or you're going to get detention or you're going to get beat. So instead of learning it in a form of where I'm analyzing and I'm saying, yes, that makes sense, whatever, it's just based on memory. Because that's how we've taught to learn, on memory, and not to analyze things and question things and sort of, go pros and cons and what might make sense and what mightn't. We just learn based on memory. Teacher tell you something, that's that, and you go with that. There's no wrong. Teacher can never be wrong.
Yeah, and that is one of the key problems here, that we always felt like we cannot question authority.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of stories on this, because I remember a teacher telling me, "You talk too much. Stay in the corner, hush your mouth." I used to be the talkative one. I used to be the active one, beating drum, all kind of thing. I used to do a lot of crazy stuff. But one of the things that they used to tell me, that I used to talk too much. Sit down in the corner there and shut your mouth, right? And if I did listen to them, then I probably would have not been doing what I'm doing now, because all I do is talk. That's what I do for a living. So the teachers didn't take time to harness or harvest my abilities, to figure out what my strengths are, and harvest those abilities, and see how they could make me a better person. Whether, if I like to talk, then push me to that, and make me, or try to see what I could fit in into that particular lifestyle. But that wasn't done. So the whole educational system at that time was adapted wrong,
True.
incorrectly, I believe. Right?
Everybody isn't an academic, and that's what a lot of people don't, fail to realize. Everybody can't be an academic. We're all different people with different abilities, and I think if that is nurtured from primary school days, just sort of understanding that children have different abilities, children sort of grow up liking certain things, and if we just push them towards that, that would curb a lot of problems in society in terms of unemployment, in terms of young people sort of trying to figure out where do they go with life after they finish school, because we just thought that everybody should be academics, and everybody shouldn't. Everybody can't be academics. We need farmers, we need fishermen, we need, people in every sort of part in society to do different jobs. But we don't sort of prepare children for that. We want everybody to have 11 subjects and have 5 degrees, and then you get out of school, and what you're going to do with them? There's nothing, no jobs, nothing there for you. Instead of teaching children to be analytic and think for themselves and come up with a business plan and a business idea and push them towards that, we don't do that. And if a child isn't academically inclined, then you beat them, because you're beating them to learn, which we shouldn't do.
Right. Exactly. And Joel, do you think that by doing that, one of the things that Kim said earlier, by introducing corporal punishment at such an early age, you're basically telling a child that anytime you want to get something done, you beat for it.
Yeah.
Once you want a positive, if you want a positive reaction to something, you beat for it. If your wife ain't listening to you, you beat her,
Mhm.
right? So we grew up with that kind of mentality. Everything you go beat, you go beat. So if you look at society today, when a lot of people say, "Well, listen, I turned out fine," but when you look at the amount of abuse, sexual abuse, spousal abuse, rise in domestic violence, all of this stuff could be attributed to what happened then. So
Yeah,
are we?
even emotional abuse. Even
Yeah,
emotional abuse
emotional abuse.
is a major factor, because for
Oh,
example,
Right?
for example, for me personally, this topic is quite interesting, and it's kind of really personal for me because my early life was filled with a lot of abuse. Matter of fact, when I get licks for 3 4 days, I can't use my hand, my foot, and
Wow.
it really affected me psychologically. Matter of fact, my early days in school, I stayed down in grade 1 in class. I mean, one of the lowest grade. The teacher said I had a learning disability, and they kept me down in grade 1. Thank God, a good Samaritan in my community. She took me and put me into a private school. But that early aspect of my life, it really affected my ability to learn and to think. And I was living in a total state of fear. And the only place I found my comfort was when I went to the playing field to play sports and, just put in all my energy. But once I had to go home, just the thought of going home to my stepfather was like a trauma. And then leaving there and going to school and just knowing that you're not doing well in class already and just have to deal with the embarrassments of the teachers that came with it. It really affected me. So I can really relate to what it feels to be at the bottom of a class. But one of the most important thing that I learned in that whole experience that really was the turning point for me, and I think that is why I mentioned the whole aspect of community. There was this one lady in my community. She saw what was happening to me. She saw the abuse and everything that I was facing. She saw everything that was happening, but she also saw someone with potential. And I remember she took me under her wings. She gave me my first dictionary and told me to learn at least 10 words a week. And actually, she got me my first book on the brain and encouraged me the importance of reading and stuff. And I remember moving in my first term, my first term, I came 36 out of 44 in class. 36 out of 4 because of the trauma and the abuse and all of these things and how it impacted me. And you know, when I got that, is like that was like, okay, yeah, we knew you're at the bottom of the class. Some of the teachers, I mean, they literally rubbed the team. You understand? And I remember just the as I said, the mentor, the importance of mentorship. She took me in beside me. She said, "Put us, don't worry about the 36, how much you came." And she started to work with me. And I remember within 3 terms, at the end of Form 1, I moved from 36 to 14th in class. And my first term in Form 2, I moved into the top 5. You know, so I moved from someone who was shy and introverted to someone who was assertive, confident, and a leader in my school. And then the same sport that became a comfort zone for me, I went on to represent my country playing football. So the thing about it, those all the aspect of a child's life, what we are there searching for is mentorship, nurturing, guidance. And sometimes they're not getting it at home because home is what they faced in school is the same thing they're facing home. And that is why it's so important, even in our communities, we look and identify those young persons that are faced with those situations and really take them on our wings and operate from a mentorship capacity and a nurturing capacity and show them that there's a positive alternative, you know, and to help them to grow and become better. And today I'm eternally grateful to Miss Lalsi because, I mean, had it not been for her, I think I would have been a criminal or some guy on the block, some file and maybe been in prison or something like that because that was what they said I was going to be. I remember one of them said to my mom that she would have to go in prison and push her hand through the steel bar to hand me a cigarette because that was what I was going to end up being, you know. So I mean, those are the realities.
Wow.
I
Well,
think
yeah, go ahead, Kips.
I think because I think somebody I've just sort of read a comment that's saying when you sort of correct your child or discipline your child, you're not murdering them. Well, that's arguable because a lot of people, we're walking around here with a lot of childhood traumas. Lots of adults, they're walking around with childhood trauma and they don't know it. You know, and a lot of that trauma stems from how you parented, one, or primary socialization, which is school, churches, whatever, you know. And this is why we grow up hurting other people because we have that trauma. We don't know where that stemmed from. And I'm not sort of blaming parents because lots of the parents didn't know any better. And I wouldn't blame one teacher in particular. I blame the system because I feel like, again, we're more evolved as a society. We're more knowledgeable. Research is out there, you know. So we need to start from changing the system from the top come down. That's what we need to do. And obviously, physical harm is so easy to spot, but mental harm and psychological damage really hard to prove. And I work with children who are psychologically damaged, and that's one of the hardest thing to prove or sort of to identify because it's not something that you see. It's in that child's mind, and then they grow up with that, and then they've got lots and lots of problems from childhood trauma. And that stems from how they, you know, how you grow a child and how you teach them to deal with situations. I firmly believe that in the school curriculum we should have like problem solving and conflict resolution. That should be in our curriculum now for children because you go throughout the day and you face lots of problems, bullying online or just somebody being mean to you and you don't know how to deal with that. So what's the first thing you do? You become aggressive. You
Right.
grow up as a teenager, something happens, somebody call you a name, not a nice name. What do? You become aggressive, you pull a knife, you pull something because that's how you learn. It's that trauma, that cycle of trauma that continues. And we
Right.
don't recognize that. And you say, oh well, you're an adult, you make this decision. No, we implement that in children from young. So that's what they grow with, that's what they know.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, Michelle Alexander was on the program. She went on now. I think she became a doctor, right? But she was being sexually abused at home, and that was affecting her for a number of years. And because of that, the only way how she could feel like people in school to get her attention is that is either she would fight or she ended up being one of the most, she probably was coming last in class because it was affecting her there and it was affecting her in school. Let's look at it from that angle. Instead of the teachers trying to find out what is happening at home or what is happening to the child, they go say what the child does and they go beat the child. They go beat the child without understanding. So as you said, Joel, the child have to deal with the psychological trauma that they get beaten at home, and the other trauma that when they go to school again, beaten again because they are failing in class. Aren't you guys surprised that in 2022, some teachers in the Caribbean specifically, after all these studies, after all these things that's available to them, they still resort to beating children to learn a timetable or to learn spelling bee or to learn social studies? And aren't you guys surprised that in this age that we're in, people are still not moving to the next level of trying to understand that child rather than to beat that child into submission?
Yeah, that is sad, and sometimes, Junior, a teacher beating a child probably has nothing to do with the child. The
Yes.
teacher probably just stressed out at home, and that's just an avenue to release your stress. So that child is just, acting up in class, their behavior is deteriorating, and you'll be like, oh, stress at home, stress in school, I'm just going to give somebody some lash. Lots of times that happens. When you beat a child, it's because you're frustrated and not something that you really wanting the child to learn. It's out of frustration.
Yes.
Nothing to do with the child. It's your frustration,
Yeah, and that is another big issue. That is another big issue because it might just be that the person who is beating on their wife or beating on their girlfriend or the first one to pull out and fight in a club is the same teacher that come in there and want to beat on a child. That is the person's character, and that needs to be analyzed when you really look at it. Because I for me personally, growing up in school, when I look at it retrospectively, I'm like, yo, I really didn't need to be beaten like that. They could have worked with me, because if I didn't get all this other mentorship that I did when I was growing up, what would I have been doing now?
Exactly. Exactly.
You'd have been shut up somewhere.
I would have been shut up like a mute.
Yeah.
Because that's all I used to hear. Junior talk too much. The boy he's just too damn talkative. And mind you, I have another problem as it relates to the scoring system. I don't know if they still have it, but the scoring system is another problem. When you come first in test or 30 something in test or last in test, that again is a psychological problem. I don't know if it's still in play right now.
They still have it.
They still have it.
Yeah,
I
but
think
Junior, that whole issue of standardized testing and positioning in class, that's a next psychological warfare that children has to deal with every day.
Yeah.
And you find, if you look at the rate of suicide, for example, because of the expectation that sometimes teachers or even parents put on their children, especially top producing children in class, that's so much pressure that children have to leave. If they got a B in an exam, they feel like they have let the world down, they have let their parents down, they have let the teacher down, and some of them would rather just die, commit suicide. And you see that those things are really happening. But if you look right now, Junior, at the students who are more critical and analytical today, they were literally at the bottom of the class. They were very critical in school. They questioned everything. They were very confident. They was outspoken. If you look at those qualities, is what life requires of them. And you realize those are the persons who are more adaptable, more resilient, and they went on to do better in their career and society on a whole. So, and I've seen cases where the top students in the class who was really did well. You look at them today and you wonder, wow, this was my valedictorian. What happened along the way? Because you see, life don't ask you for the notes. That person will leave and go home, sit in their room, remember all their notes. And I will go home, I will rush to the playing field, play football. I learned to interact. I learned to socialize. I learned to, develop. I lose a game, so I had to go home and deal with it. So I learned to come back the next day stronger, better. So those interactive moments as a child is so important.
Yeah.
But I remember there were some of those parents who just wanted their kids to remain home and have the nice dinners in the veranda and they laughing key while we there running and playing football and cricket and playing under the street lights and having fun. They didn't want their kids to come out and play with us because they say we were not going to amount to anything good because we played sports. So you see what some of those children had to deal with that. They missed that opportunity to develop those critical skills. So when come even today, Junior, when companies are hiring, they don't actually fuss for your resume. They want to test your emotional intelligence. They want to test your social intelligence. They want to test those abilities because they realize those are the skill set that are critically important for you to be successful today.
Yeah.
Even in IQ test, Junior, they
Uh-huh.
test. Even in your IQ test, they test you on, critical skills and how you analyze things and so on. I think the scoring system is really detrimental to children because it creates an us and them atmosphere
True.
in.
Yeah.
The person who comes first is the it, and the person who probably comes last in class is nothing. And then you do open up more avenues for bullying for children. And like I say, children these days are not as resilient as children before. Again, a child might become depressed, stressed, anxious, doesn't want to go to school, feels like, oh, I can't make it in the class because everyone's coming first, second, third. I'm not coming to anything. The teacher think I'm worthless, so the teacher doesn't give me any time. And if I ask a question, the teacher pull out the strap and beat me. Again, you go into your whole school life feeling stressed and depressed. These are things that can cause you to feel like, I can't commit anything in school. I can't commit anything in the community. I'm just going to commit suicide. And those are things that we don't think about and look at. I feel like before, children start school, they should have an avenue to talk about things, even if things that might be stressing them out at home, what might create barriers in terms of learning and so on. And you work with a child from there. What happens in a child home, because it's not only the parents' child. I mean, we know that children should be brought up by a community, and yes, teachers and the churches and everybody has a part to play in sort of raising a child. And to make sure a child is all right, we all need to pull our weight instead of everyone's beating a child. Find out what's happening for that child and how we can sort of work around that to produce good children for a society and community.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, let me just say this again, that we want to open up the phone line because we want this to be a conversation. There are a lot of people who feel like corporal punishment in school should continue and they're supportive of it. I want to hear from some of you guys who feel that it is necessary, that who feel that it is good, who feel that spare the rod and spoil the child kind of theory. You know what I mean? You don't want to do that. So give us a call, 718-701-5720. Jump to the phone line right now. Call your live. Where are you calling us from?
Junior, I'm calling you from Canada.
Go right ahead, Canada.
Happy New Year to all. Happy New Year to all.
Thank you.
And I'm really enjoying your program. I'm just stealing a minute to call you. There is
Appreciate that.
something that occurs in school also, and unfortunately, I didn't hear none of you guys touch it. Racism in school. Racism in school is worse than capital punishment.
Mhm.
For example, if I black like roast corn and you have the complexion like the people who live in Montmartre have, everything you do because you're white skin, you've been treated like a king or a queen. You never get licks, you never get suspended. You'll be the head prefect in the school. You'll be the PRO of student council. Teachers exercise strong racism in school too. And this must be talked about. This topic must be touched, because it is not a good feeling. Sometimes you may forget the capital punishment or the licks, you might forget some of them. But when you experience racism in school, because this student family is related to or they're a minister, or their brother, their father is a police, or the parents is a nurse, and your parent is a market vendor, they treat you like, you're not a child. They treat you a different treatment you get. So I need them to stop this too. It is unacceptable. Every child is equal, and every child deserves the same amount of level of care, education, and attention. This is my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so
and
much.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Very important, very, very important topic there. And to think about, if you have a minister of government or commissioner of police or someone in high position and his son or daughter go to that particular school, you think the teacher will take a chance and beat that child?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Joel, what do you
So,
think about the racism that she's speaking about? And
no, but the
even
truth of the fact is, I mean, classism do exist in school, Junior.
And
Junior,
colorism, not
and
racism.
colorism, classism, because that's the nature of society. I mean, based on who you are, based on who your parents are, based on the school. If you went to a particular school and that child was to do something wrong, they may quicker pick up their phone and call a parent before they beat that child. But let's say a child come from very humble beginnings, their family don't have that social status, and that child does something, that child is most likely to be punished differently. But Junior, it actually translates from the school system and it goes into the society. Because certain people will do certain things in society and they get a slap on the wrist. Another person who come from humble beginnings or they come from poverty-stricken family, they're dealt with totally different.
yeah,
So I mean, and it exists in society. So that is the reality.
It's
And so
on.
you don't.
Yeah. Go
So
ahead.
it starts in the school system because it's a very valuable point the caller made, because I saw those things happen when certain students did certain things in school. When you were asked to go to the bench to get punished for it, the teachers will leave that child alone. They will call their parent. They will call their parent. They dare not send them on the bench and they dare not punish them. They will call their parents and said, okay, this is what Harry did. This is what Jane did. But the next child, he got detention. He got punished because his parents don't have name. They don't have no social status, poverty, or ordinary family. So, as I said, this is part of a bigger problem, Junior. It's part of a bigger problem, a societal problem that we if we are to solve all these problems, we must get to the root, to the source of the problem, where it exists from, and really work to really, if it's something we really want to solve. Because Junior, let me give you a typical example. You go into an organization, a company, for service, for two persons, and that person have a social status, and they get through at a faster rate, or they even treated differently. And next man go through, they may tell him, man, we close. And next man with name walks in and they're automatically open for him. And I've seen all these things played off so much, even in the restaurants. I remember one time I went into a restaurant and as I was younger and I just started working, and I saw how these people treated certain people when they walked into the restaurant. I remember one time I walked in and I asked a lady, can you give me a little gravy? You know what she did? She just souped my entire plate. But let me tell you what happened, what eventually happened. I remember when I was appointed the Carol Community Ambassador for Grenada, and I walked into the same restaurant. What do you think happened? I was treated differently. The same restaurant I used to go before. And they treated you like, and I told you, she just put a hot scoop and just soup my entire plate, throw all the gravy on it. But once I was appointed a Carol Community Ambassador, and they knew, they treated you differently. They were friendly, they were warm, they treated you different. So that's the nature of our society. And that's what I was always say to people. The same person you may treat today a particular type of way, the same child you may treat a particular type of way. You never know in the future where that child. I remember listening to a story about this guy who came from very humble beginnings, couldn't afford to pay bus to go to school. And I remember one time a conductor took his bag, dropped it on the ground, stamped, kicked it up and all kinds because he didn't have bus fare. And I remember later on that young man finished school, went off to study, came back and became a manager of a bank. And that same conductor came to the bank for a loan and could not have got a loan, and the situation had to be referred to the manager. And what do you think happened? He walked into he didn't recognize him. I mean, he was a little boy then, but that boy never forgot that. He never forgot the face. You understand? But so those are the situations that happen, and it's part of a bigger societal problem.
Hold on, Joel. Hold a thought right there. We got a call on the line. Caller, where are you calling us from?
I'm from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, New York. Right ahead.
Yes, I'm talking about being punished in school and punishment in school. I mean, I had a lot of punishment at home, but I wouldn't even speak about home. I speak about the principal of the school.
Right.
One of the things that I witnessed and suffer for in school with my principal, well, he died now, and I reminded him at one point in time, when we get to school, if we're late, we have to stand in line to be punished
Oh yeah.
because you're not supposed to come to school late.
Right.
Sometimes you stay home to wash the wares and to pick up the clothes before, rain fall and, whatever little bits and pieces there's, have to do at home. But there is this particular girl or few selective girls in the school that the principal had liked. And if they're late, they never get punished. They used to go next door to pick like golden apples and stuff like this. We come back late, we'll be punished. That's what we used to do. We used to take the girls. I mean, it was nice, but I just sit back and I remember and I laugh.
Mhm.
We kidnap the girls and we go with them. So when we come back, if we have to get licked, everybody getting licked.
Right.
So guess what? He's not going to beat us because the little girl is in the group.
Oh, I see.
Yes, his
I
little
see.
girl is in the group.
Yeah.
And we for years you stayed in school and you look at this man punish, girls who is not in his caliber, and the girls who, and I think it's still happening up to this day, and it's not right.
Yeah. The favoritism.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Carl. So, Carl,
That's my main
what about an alternative? Let me get your point of view because you've been through it. What as an alternative to corporal punishment? How do you think teachers could get students in line with their studies? What's your recommendation?
But okay, one of my favorite teachers that was in school, I would call his name because he's very good at what he did, Aiden Slinger.
Uh-huh.
My class was the worst class in school. I went to Continental Methodist School. And we used to get licks from top to bottom. But he came in school and his attitude towards us was totally different.
Mm-hmm.
He would sit down with us. We would have like classes or different topics where we would sit down and we would talk and everybody would participate and give their view. And he barely used to beat us. And he got our class to be one of the top classes in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Because his method was different with dealing with the troubled children, so to speak.
Right.
The method. They have to change their method, as to how they do things and how they communicate. And some of the kids come from homes where there is no love. And then you look to the teachers in the school for the love and the attention, and instead they turn around and abuse you. So you've been abused at home and been abused in school. Sometimes you have students who is bigger than you, they abuse you too.
Yeah.
So you abuse all wrong.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carla. We appreciate your input on this.
You're welcome.
Right here. 718-701-5720, guys. We open up the phone line. You want to get your point of view. And if we're speaking about corporal punishment in schools, and does it actually help a student learn? Or does it help or does it hurt? No, a lot of people, as I said, under the post that we made from the Dear Rider post, under the comments, in the comment section, there was so much people that was attacking the parent that came out and made that announcement, made this public. A few people said that it should have never been done in that format. The parent that wrote to us said that they try all other things, and that was the other recourse that she felt that she needed to take. So for right now, for teachers and faculties and principals who are watching this, let's give them some advice, Joel, because we are a little bit elder. You've been you're doing good at your job. You're excellent. Kibbs is doing working with kids and in many different fields. Let's give them some recommendation. Instead of flogging the kids, instead of beating the kids in 2022, how could we get kids to be more proactive or learn or be more attentive in class? From your perspective.
So Junior, for me, I actually I would have had a mentorship group, right, in a at-risk community, right? Mostly all those young men, they were first of their generation to actually to go to secondary school. Most of their mom never went, their father never went, none of their siblings went, and they were supposed to fall in line. And I decided to take up that project in that at-risk community. And I remember what I called it was mentorship through football. So using football as a vehicle to mentor those kids. One of the things I realized, Junior, to gain respect from children, there must be a level of trust,
Mhm.
but trust comes with having conversations, right? You must give children a listening ear to really express themselves. But one is thing that is most important, you must show a child they are not they who they are right now is not who they have the potential to become. They have the potential to become more. So yes, you're a child, you may not be performing well in school, but this is the vision I have for you. This is the person I see you have the potential to become. Because I remember this quote I read years ago. They said, if you treat a person based on who they are, you will make them worse. But if you treat them based on the person they have the potential to become, with time, your vision of that person will manifest itself because that is the energy that you will put in that direction. So I started to treat those children, those young men, as if they were superstar football players, first and foremost, created that big vision that they will go on to make national football team, they will carry the Grenada flag. I started to put them on a pinnacle of excellence. Now, what I started to do was also to show them the importance of helping each other. So you were good in maths, I pair you with this person who is weak in maths. So I taught them the value of team spirit. And I said, you are responsible for that person becoming good in maths. I also created a reward system. So every 2 weeks, I had a reward system. So all my medals that I would have acquired over the years, I actually would pass them on. And also when, let's say Grenada had a game playing in the stadium, the person who was the most outstanding, right, based on the discipline and everything that you laid out, doing your homework, being obedient to your parents, doing all those different things, they got the opportunity to go to the game. So there was also a reward system for doing well. You know what eventually happened without saying much? Those other kids who were falling behind, they wanted to be rewarded. They wanted to be to be seen in a particular light. So eventually they all evolve. And you know what happened? Very soon you didn't just have to reward one, you were rewarding the entire group, the entire team. And I saw some of those young persons, they went on to pass common entrance. They're in secondary school. They went on to even one of them even went on to captain the national team on the 15 team. And gradually you were able to transform an entire community. And you know what the community said? Before you came, the ministry sent so many other people who was counselors, who was all social workers. All these people came in there, but they came in with the heavy stick approach. Get this done. Do this, without taking time to develop relationship. And I've learned the key to get people to do anything or to get people to evolve or to be better is relationship. Coming alongside that person, trying to understand their journey, trying to put your foot in their shoes, right? And being able to empathize and be patient with them. And don't be too quick to judge or don't be too quick to be hard on them. And when those kids, you know what eventually happened? When I came into the community people were saying to me,
Mhm.
hey, Joel, you know, XYZ did why the community got involved in mentoring those kids, even if those guys were bad for themselves,
Right.
smoking weed all day. They themselves took a special interest in wanting to see better for those young men and started to hold them to higher expectations. So the approach has to be different in this modern era because if you come with aggression, I can tell you those young people they will react with aggression.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that is so right. Let's jump back to the phone lines right here. Caller, you live. Where you calling us from?
Canada.
Canada, go right ahead.
I just want to applaud Mr. Joel on his tactics because that's one of the things that I know really works
Yeah.
in helping young people. The mentorship program and putting stuff, what he says about finding out who the children is by having conversations,
Right.
getting to know that child, their weaknesses, their strengths, and the peering of, that's an excellent tactic. Because if you fall as the higher person in that peer, you take down the other person who is weaker with you. So they build on each other's strengths. And that's what needs to happen in a lot of schools or in a lot of communities. Mostly there are a lot of young people who are into football, netball, basketball now, And this is what happened. If you don't pair them up with somebody who would help them to build self-esteem, to be able to communicate in terms of their home situations and stuff like that. Some kids get linked into soccer or basketball and stuff because it's an outlet for them to put out whatever is happening at home or probably in their community.
Right.
So they use going to basketball or netball or whatever sporting event just to relate or to get out some of whatever is going on.
Yes.
So that I highlight him very much for using that when he did, and I wish most more people within the community there would use those kind of skills to bring children. I wish most teachers would look at children who is at risk, or they say is at risk, and deal with them in that manner, because communication and getting to know that child or the children is how things work. If you don't communicate, you don't know. Sometimes people or children cannot speak at home. Oh, you talk too much, be quiet. But when they're in school, if you give them the opportunity to speak, they are learned children, but they keep themselves quiet because they were always taught to be quiet.
Yes.
And if you build that rapport with them, they would excel. They would teach you stuff. They would be able to help others, and they would be able to bloom for themselves.
Yeah.
So I applaud him for that way that he used to mentor. And I wish a lot of people who is listening now adapt that style of helping young people, because I know it does work.
Right. Thank you so much, caller. We appreciate you. All right.
Thank you, caller. Yeah.
Isn't one of the problems of corporal punishment in school is inexperienced teachers?
I was going to say that, Junior, because
Yes.
again, I'm not putting blame solely on teachers. Teachers probably just don't know how to deal with the problems themselves. They probably come from a cycle of abuse themselves, where they're being beaten at home and beaten in school. Again, continuing that cycle, what they've learned. So I think it should be, teachers should have extensive training in terms of child development, understanding hierarchy of need. That's something that, there's something called Maslow hierarchy of need, where before a person gets into self-actualization, there are steps that needs to be met. So first, basic steps, making sure they've got love and food and warmth and clothes. Do you know if children have these things before you sort of go off to beat them to learn because of their behavior? So I think, teachers should be taught, and that should be on a higher level. Probably whoever makes the policies or curriculum for students, they need to incorporate regular training for teachers, in terms of helping them deal with their own problems, because it must be stressful being a teacher, having a class full of 30 odd how much children, different behaviors, different personalities, going home to your own problems. So having training for teachers, having an outlet for them to sort of talk about things themselves, so that they could, learn to sort of be resilient themselves. Having more meetings with teachers and parents, so that they can bridge the gap, so teachers can have a better understanding of what's happening at home. Because like we said, a child isn't just brought up by parents, it's a community effort. So your first form of socialization is home, and then you come into school, which prepares you to go out into the community and go out, to get a job in society. So we need to sort of bridge that gap in sort of understanding, okay, what a child's experience is at home. And obviously, when they come to school, how we can bridge that gap in terms of getting over barriers in terms of learning. Mommy is struggling to pay her bills at home, and that child might have nothing to eat, and that might be the first child, and mommy sort of dealing with all the pressures that the child needs to do everything at home and to help her. That's not the child's job, but unfortunately, that's the hand they're dealt with in life. And then you're expecting them to come to school with somebody who has both parents, middle class, upper class, don't have anything to do at home, could read their books every time. They just don't have that same opportunities. And what we do, we sort of, we give everybody the same approach. So I think it should, teachers should have training. School curriculum needs to change. We need to have problem solving in school. And we need to have something like, an avenue, maybe first thing in the morning, where students could just come and talk, have a safe haven to talk about things before learning start. Just talk about whatever you want. No pressure, nothing. Just express yourself, and then we get into the learning, academic bits, and so on. So I think that's where it should start from. Top, come down.
I remember that some of my Form 1 and Form 2 teachers was just students 2 years ago or a year ago. So they graduate from school or they get X amount of subject and they place them right back into teaching. And those same teachers who are young are now presiding over your education, your psychological. I mean, they basically presiding over your future, but they don't have the necessary training
Yeah.
to do that. They don't have a necessary training to understand their kids themselves.
Yeah.
And it brings on a bigger problem, which I've been hearing a lot about. We broke a couple stories about that as well. Some of the teachers who are then coming in and taking advantage of the younger students sexually. There's all kind of situations which we have stories on where there are no, those young teachers who are inexperienced. And I'm not saying that those that all the teachers are inexperienced, but they are a lot. And this is happening where they're coming now and they're having inappropriate relationship with some students. So it's a vast problem when you have inexperienced teachers who are coming into the classroom and presiding over your child. And on top of it now, you are not taking time to understand what is the problem with the child. Instead, you go take a belt, you go take a strap, you get a piece of board, and you go beat that child, ultimately affecting that child's life forever. That's what that's what you have done. And I think it's important that we have more conversation in the powers that be. And next week, Monday, we have the Minister of Education, and we're going to talk more about this. This is a conversation that will continue because I think it's necessary that there's more engagement on this. How much damage done on a child that is beaten? To me, it is tantamount to abuse. It gets up to that point where it's abuse on a child. And it's like legal abuse. You're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it. And
it's legal, Junior, because like I said, the Convention on the Rights of the Child states that you shouldn't beat a child. That's not accepted. And like I said, 194 countries signed that treaty. So that means they accepted that. And I don't know how often sort of the curriculum or the policy for education and so on is reviewed, but it needs to be reviewed. Society has evolved so much, we've become so sophisticated. We're still using those draconian measures way back in time. So that's something that really needs to be reviewed.
Absolutely. Let's close it down in full circle. Joel, your closing argument on this here.
Yeah, in terms of a different approach, in terms of disciplining a child in school, I mean, I like Singapore method. They create like a meditation room. So when a child is acting out of character, or they would actually send them to the meditation room, where they can go there and actually meditate, and they help them to develop that level of emotional intelligence. And no wonder why they're doing well in math, science, and all those subjects that call for a greater level of critical and analytical thinking, and they're doing well as a country. So I think we have to find creative measures in how we develop the cognitive development of a child, the physical development, the emotional development, the psychological development. Because I can tell you, some of those same kids who were faced those traumas from the early stage of life, you have a lot of adults who are walking around, working in different environments. Some of them are in leadership positions who have not been able to deal with some of the trauma. And you wonder why our society is impacted the way it is. So the children are the future. And if we are to correct the ills in our society, we have to start. We cannot bend those trees that are already, that is at a certain age. We can start with our children. And by making sure that our children have the right foundation, we can create better adults in the future and create a better society that we all would be proud of.
Absolutely. Kibbs, you want to close up? Well, Kibbs, before you give your last statement, I wanna bring this. I wanna tally. Oh, I was trying to bring a. Let me see if I can still get it up there. I was trying to bring a reaction to get from the audience. Let's see if it will come back up here. But Kibbs, go ahead. Make your final statement on your thoughts in conclusion to this topic.
Yeah, again, like I said, the European Convention on the Rights of the Child have managed and sort of talked about against corporal punishment for children. It's a form of abuse. Being light, being heavy, it's a form of abuse. I mean, parents, we know primary socialization begins at home. However, after the home, the secondary form of socialization in school, and we are expecting teachers to mold our, our students and our children to become, future prime ministers and leaders, and not even leaders, like farmers, and just, people to be part of society and living in society and assimilating in society well. And to be able to do that, we need to make sure that we, help children emotionally and mentally, not just academically, be there for children emotionally and mentally, and understand that children have problems, and how we can solve those problems is through communication and talking about, what's happening and what's causing the barrier in learning and what the problem is. And also give children an avenue, a voice to talk. Children even might have solutions to their own problems. You might be surprised what children might say, the problem is and how we can solve it. So let's give children an avenue to talk, a voice. I think teachers need training. And again, like I said previously, I'm not coming on any teacher. Some of them are very young. You come from school, probably college, and you go straight into teaching, and you're not offer that training and that skills in terms of dealing with problems, behavioral problems, emotional problems. Some of them aren't resilient, some of them aren't emotionally intelligent. I think teachers need training to deal with that. I think teachers and parents need to have an open relationship. It's not us and them, it's not a teacher and parent. It's we're working together for a child for the future. And I think bigger heads, the prime minister, the government, everybody needs to be a part of this, because like I said, children are the most vulnerable group in society, and we are the one that's molding them and shaping them to become leaders and just assimilate and be part of society. And to do that, we need to sort of make sure children are happy, they know that they're loved, they know that they're valued. We should, again, positive reinforcement, offer rewards, let them know that no child is dumb, no child is stupid. Everybody is valued, and it doesn't matter what way you're valued. You're a valued part of society. So I think, again, stressing on training for teachers, stressing on looking at the curriculum, putting something in place where children have a safe space to talk, and open communication between parents and teachers in terms of how we can overcome barriers.
Thank you so much. Let me just put this quick poll, reaction poll. I'm sorry for the contrasting colors, guys, but this is what it is. I wanna poll the viewing audience, the live viewing audience right now on your take. Do you support corporal punishment? And it's a yes or no. So if you're saying yes, you support corporal punishment, you believe in it, it worked for you, and you think it will work for the future generation, you're pressing the thumbs up. So press that thumbs up if you're in support of corporal punishment. If you're not in support of it, if you are against it and you say no to corporal punishment, you want to press the heart. All right. So this is a quick poll. I want to kind of poll the audience a bit. So again, you're pressing the thumbs up right there, the thumbs up. If you are in support, you are saying yes to corporal punishment, you are in support of it, right? If you are not in support of it, you are saying no. Let's do about a 1 minute poll and see what you guys are saying right now. Press it. I'll be interested to find out, after all that was said here today, after everything, all the calls, all what Kim said, all what Joel said, what the audience really think after all of this. And did any of this change your mind or make you think differently about it? So let's do it right now. Press it right now. Let's know. Let me see. We have about. I'm gonna do this again for about 45 seconds, and then I'm gonna end the poll. I want to see what the audience are feeling and what the audience are thinking. Yeah, so if you are saying yes, you're pressing the thumbs up. No, you are pressing the heart. There are about 30 seconds left. We got about 10 seconds left. All right. So based on the viewership here on the live audience respond, we're seeing that about 36 voted for and say that they are do you support they're not in support of corporal punishment, and 28 votes saying that they are in support of corporal punishment. So there are more people on the live right now that's watching on the live that is not in support of it. I'm interested to hear the people that are in support. That's why I asked, if some of you guys could call in. Some of you guys don't want to put your voice on the record, which I guess I could understand. So yes, so more people on the live are saying no to corporal punishment. I hope that sends a message to the teachers and principals and the powers that be, that there are developmental issues that a child goes through when they are beaten in school to learn at times tables. And I think they need to harness the child, learn about the child, see what the skills the child have, and develop on that instead of beating them into submission to learn a timetable, which is only by memory, because by the time they leave, they don't remember the timetables. I never remembered it. That didn't work for me at all. Anyway, guys, Joel and Kibbs, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you. Again, you guys are a part of the team, so you know how we go. All right, later, guys. We'll keep
Take care, man. Have a good one, Junior. Have a good one, Kevin. Good, man. Take care. Yeah.
Good night. All right, guys. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for supporting. Thanks for being a part of our program right here, where we tackle some of the issues. Where we tackle some of the issues. Yeah, man, we had to take time to tackle some of the issues and talk about some of the issues, because in a time like this, 2022, there should be a different approach. Learn about the child, learn about what the child. Hey, listen, even common entrance, a lot of people say, that whole process of they don't have common entrance no more, CPA. What happened to the kids that don't pass? They feel like a dunce. They feel like they didn't succeed. They feel like they, they should be left back, or they felt left back. That might be something that needed to be addressed as well. I don't know. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you guys tomorrow. On the behalf of our Ride Along team, Kibbs, Gail, Deanne Fraser, and Lois JJ. Good night, everybody. Catch you guys again tomorrow. Peace out. Good night. Well, it's on the Ride Along, so it's happening here.
Came over here. What does it mean?
I grew up in what I guess you call a typical family.
We break all the stories, and that's just a fact. And that's why everyone has a story to tell.
Ridealong live, yeah, it's the real deal.
Do you feel sick? Are you unsure? Or need to travel, but can't afford the long, exhausting lines? Then you need to be tested for COVID-19. Here at All Pro Health Lab, you can schedule your appointment online. No wait, no lines, no hassle. And get your results back in 30 minutes or less. Call now to find out more. 516-828-1808. Our agents are always ready to help. Hear why everyone is talking about All Pro Lab. It's quick, efficient, and tests are guaranteed in 30 minutes or less with full certification. Check us out online at allprolab.com or call 516-828-1808. All Pro Health Lab. Call today.
Hello there. Let me introduce you to the Nutmeg Band. Playing in the background is the latest release, Take Me to a Party.
Take me to a party.
This music is now available on leading online stores. So please, pick up your copy today and tell all your friends about it. Get your copy now.
Williams Funeral Service serve you with dignity and compassion as you mourn. Every day, we embark on the journey of life, and one day, the journey will end. It's on that day that you can entrust the celebration of life of your loved ones to David Williams Funeral Service. Call 718-291-3823.